Okay, good morning. Welcome to this session, question and answer on the CBRES 4th status call. So the way it works, we have 1 hour slot, and you will be able to post your question in Slido. So you will see in the screen of the web stream the connection to slido.com, so the hashtag CEF Energy CB RES. So there you can post your question. During the session, we will start from the questions that were already posted from the registration until today, and then try to answer as many as possible. And there might be questions where we need to follow up. And in any case, after this session today, we will have an updated version of the FAQ document, which is already available today since the opening of the call. And after this session, there will be an update of the FAQ document in case there are new questions that are not covered already by the document. So stay tuned also in the following days. And for those who have registered, we can send also the update when the document is online. So it will take a few days, so possibly during next week. So yes, let's try to dig into the various questions. So as I said, there might be some questions to which we can answer fully or partly, and I think there are some questions that can be clustered. So we'll see them one by one. All right. So if you're already on the other side of your screens, everywhere in Europe, so let's take off. So the first question is about the electricity consumption. So when a part of the electricity is consumed in the hosting country and part is exported to the participating country, how does this affect the capacity considered in the counterfactual scenario? So in the project that would take place without the cross-border cooperation. So this is one of the questions which we might have to clarify a bit further after this session. As a first element of answer there, what is important in the definition of the CBA and the counterfactual is that you take into account what is the perimeter of the project that you want to apply for CBRES status. So there might be, in some cases, projects are composed of many elements, and some are part you want to apply for the status, and others might be outside the scope. So I think the first element to keep in mind is what is the perimeter of the project, because then you have to be able to compare it with the counterfactual scenario. So in a way, the two elements should be comparable. So if there are elements that are not part of this electricity flow, then normally they might be outside the scope of the project. So, but then it again depends what we are talking about. If it is a project between member states, so EU countries, or if it is a project between a member state and the third countries, because there you have the obligation of the consumption of the electricity in the EU in the case of countries. So we might need to explore it a bit further, the case. In the second question about the cooperation agreement between member state and third country, the question is whether the physical link between the electricity, so if there is an electricity interconnector in place, must be existing at the moment of the application, or can it be planned in time to transmit electricity from the CBRES project at commission? So that's a specific case with countries, and there, so the obligation is that the electricity must be consumed in the EU. So either the electricity interconnector is already there, but it has to be sure that the electricity is consumed in the EU. So that's also an element that we would like to come back because it's pending on clarification on the interpretation of Article 11, which is the article dealing with this element of the Renewable Energy Directive. So also on this element, let's stay tuned for the updated FAQ document. So we will come back to you in writing. Yeah. The next one. Does the letter of support cooperation agreement from participating country must be signed by the minister level or by other person with the power of attorney? So there you have there's an FAQ in the FAQ document covering it. So basically, what we say is that the person that is signing the letter of support or the cooperation agreement have to have the possibility to engage, so to commit the member state. So either it is a minister level, but it doesn't have to be necessarily a ministry. It can be a high-ranked official or any other person that has the power to indeed to commit the country. The next one, it's about providing an example of a CBA tool filled in with let's say mock CBA. Well, first of all, I mean, in this call we have done quite important development of the tool because that provides already quite a few functionality to help you in the drafting of the CBA. Now, writing a full mock example, so far we haven't we have discarded because in a way it would be we will have to create several examples because any CBA it's very much project specific and it's based on assumptions that are the choice of the applicant in a way. So it's very difficult to standardize the options there. So it would be probably misleading because you would take it as a face value, so to say, and maybe it's not adapted to your specific case. So far we haven't done it, and that's not foreseen for this school. Next question, it's about the interconnection timeline in the in the Renewable Energy Directive, Article 11.3. So it's again a joint project between member states and third countries. So there is a specific timeline that is mentioned in this paragraph 3, about when the project has to be commissioned. So also these aspects we will come back also in writing, but the important thing to keep in mind here is that this paragraph, it's for member states, so it specifies what are the requirements of the participating member state in order for them to get the statistics or a pro rata or the full statistic of the energy consumed at the national, to have it counted in the national statistics. It is not a problem of the promoter of the project itself. So this timeline is not something that sets the condition for the project. Now, of course, the idea of the CB RES program is also to be a tool to facilitate those cooperation mechanism, and in many cases those cooperation mechanisms are there to indeed manage to get statistics for lagging behind countries, for example. So this is an important element of consideration of the general background of the project, but it's not a condition that is imposed on the project, but it's something for the member states. Yeah. Next one, joint project between member states. Can one member state only ask while the other contribute expertise and gains new knowledge, or must both countries benefit directly from the energy produced by a statistical cross-border transfer? Well, I mean, when you set up a project like that, and you need a cooperation mechanism, at some point, either at the beginning only a letter of support if you don't have the full cooperation mechanism, but later you will have to have a cooperation mechanism. Well, normally the member state that is not hosting, so the contributing member state, needs to have an advantage in being part of the project. The advantage can be very types of advantages. It can be getting the energy if it is a physical cross-border project where there is energy flow, but it could be statistical transfer. Only participation based on gaining expertise on the type of project, it's probably a bit theoretical. It's very unlikely. It's not that it's not excluded or forbidden, but it's very likely that you will manage to have such a support from member state only because of that. So on the article question, next one is about Article 9. So it's still a joint project between member states. If a company is a public procurement entity, it is not allowed to pre-select procurement partners who might benefit from participating in studies, technology development, or construction. So maybe here it's important to clarify, first of all, that here we are talking about the status project. So the call to get into a CB RES list. You will not get out of this call grants. So this is only to be eligible to apply for CEF studies and works projects supported by CEF grants. Now, when it comes to in the second step, let's assume that you are in the list as a project. Well, in that case, we'll have to apply the normal rule of your company and, of course, the legislation that is applicable on public procurement, typically. The companies that are applying the status, that's another important element to be clear, do not have to be the same that apply for studies or works. So that's also something to keep in mind because the promoters of the status can be different from the beneficiary, can be a member state, and typically a member state, they don't apply for studies or works in those type of projects. So I think you need to distinguish these two scenarios. And when it gets to the application for funding, obviously the setup of the consortium will be decided at that moment by you and your applicants. Also taking into account this consideration of constraints of procurement, etc. Okay, I hope that clarifies, but feel free to keep posting questions. In member state fair countries project, how does electricity consumed in the union criteria requesting TSO to allocate interconnection capacity will apply if a project is connected to a merchant transmission line to the EU? So this is another link to the Article 11 clarification. On that, we need to come back to you on the updated FAQ document in writing. So I will hold it for the time being. The next question: can cooperation occur between companies that belong to the same group but are registered in different member states? And additionally, can this cooperation involve sharing best practice and knowledge for potential projects in the member states? So the second part of the question, I think we tackled it on the previous one. On the first question, it can even be only one promoter, and so it doesn't have to be two promoters on the two sides, because imagine a project without physical crossing the border. We have currently in projects in the ones that are in the CB RES list project that are implemented only by one company in one member state, which is the hosting member state, and there is a contributing member state on the other side. So it can be also one single project. But if it is a project that is crossing the border, it's likely that you have two companies on the two sides, and it can be the same group or can be different companies. This is up to you and to promoter to set it up. So there's no specific requirement on the consortium contribution composition. Sorry. Yeah. Next one. Concerning a CB RES application, which is intended that the two EU member states will use the cooperation mechanism, Article 8 of RED 2, or should I present the counterfactual and time horizon of how many years? So Article 8 is about the statistical transfer. So I think that's an important aspect to clarify if really you are in this situation. Meaning that if your project is, if you have a project to build, so new energy generation that will be built in the future, this is not a statistical transfer. That's by default, it's a joint project between member states or between member states and third countries. So if you are in the case of a statistical transfer, it means that you want to enter in a cooperation agreement with another member state to agree on a certain amount of statistics to be transferred to the contributing member state via means of basically of a transaction. So a cost basically, how much you get per statistics there. In this case, your project is not a real project. You don't need to send the full CBA or anything like that because the project will not exist. If you want to apply for CBRS status just to do a statistical transfer, it means that in case you enter into the list, you may be able to apply for studies to prepare your agreement. So far, this is a very theoretical possibility because you have to really consider that the administrative burden for that might be disproportionate. Might be much easier to enter into direct talks with the other member state, or consider other mechanisms like for example the RenewFM, so the Renewable Energy Financing Mechanism. Next one, yes. So CBRS project that might be coupled with PCI or PMI could be applied before or after the start of the works of the complementary project. So there might be projects that are in for some part of the element, for some elements are in CBRS and other are in PCI, for example, the transmission line, for example, if we're talking about the electricity project. So this is a possibility. The two has to stay very distinguished. The two processes don't relate each other. They don't interfere. The selection process is completely separated. Having said that, there can be projects that can enter in the CBRS list that may not have started. This is actually the vast majority, but there's no requirement that the works have not started or the studies have not started. The main requirement being that the project is not commissioned, of course, because in that case, that makes no real sense to apply. But other than that, any stage before project can apply. So next question is about the size of the counterfactual, whether it must be the same with the CBRS project. So to be comparable, yes. Also there you find directly referencing the Commission staff working document setting the methodology for the CBA, which is also available for download in the core webpage. But you have it also in the FAQ document. As a rule of thumb, it must be the same size. Now, there can be little differences, but have to be justified. So the more you can do it comparable, so to have a standardized counterfactual project, the better it is, because of course it allows to compare really very similar cases or even almost identical. If it is justified because of your assumptions behind, you can diverge in the size as well. But they must be comparable, so to say. It's not that one project is very big and the other one is it's very small, and it becomes very complicated to compare the two. In any case, any divergence must be justified. So explain your assumption behind it. That's very important because the evaluator will really look at the plausibility of the arguments as well there. Yeah, and we can see on the last one at the moment on this. So is it possible for cross-border cooperation to work within the European code between two towns? One in Czech Republic and second one is Slovakia. The example is this cooperation conditional, for example, to set this. Okay, no. So there's no requirement in terms of distance between, for example, in the case of two towns. It all depends on the type of project you are proposing, of course. It has to make sense. So if you are proposing a joint project between two cities, it depends what you want to do. Because of course there has to be a rationale why you want to come as a joint CB RES project. Is it because you want to transfer the electricity, for example, or the heat or anything else? And then, is it then physically possible? How would you do it? So we have projects that are distanced, but they also foresee exchanging of energy, for example, in green hydrogen. We have projects that are close one another. So we have a case of two cities projects. Look at the CB RES list. In that case, there are just almost one single big municipality, and their aim is to transfer it's about district heating, so the aim is to transfer the heat from one side to another, depending on the need and the production. So again, there's no specific requirement. It has to make sense for your project. And we have another question. What happens if the permits for the project is rejected and the project already received funding from the CEF? So I guess that's the idea where the project stops, basically. Cannot go ahead. So it's discontinued. So if the project in the meantime has been selected for self-funding, there is a separate process there. So there is a grant agreement in place. There are specific conditions. Normally, it doesn't mean that the grant stops per se. Obviously, if the grant is about something that you cannot carry out anymore because of the stop of the permit that is rejected, it may have a consequence there. But there's no direct impact, so that you are automatically terminated. Yeah, and exactly. So the self-funding will not be recovered automatically because of that. So if the activities that you have carried out and the costs that incurred so far at that moment, they are eligible, and even if the project makes sense to continue the full grant, it may theoretically continue until the end if that makes sense. If it doesn't, well, we'll have to see on the case by case. And maybe linked to this even wider. There's another one. Just to complete on that, it is the same if the project exits the list. So if there is a grant ongoing, and in case the project is at some point it doesn't have any more the condition to stay in the list, and there's a decision by the Commission there. Also, the grant follows a specific path. There is a grant agreement for that. Okay, so the CBA calculation of the benefits, such as emission impact, do we account the benefit only in the receiving country or also in the surrounding country? So yes, this is also one aspect that we should probably come back also in writing on this one. I think the same as one of the previous question. Yeah. Jolet, feel free to step in if you want. Yeah, I think the main question there is really about the perimeter of the project. So if the project, so the emission are the ones considered for where they are, for the contributing country and the hosting country. Now, surrounding EU countries, if that means surrounding other than the hosting or receiving, no, that shouldn't be the case. So maybe that's the question. If that's it, let us know if we answered. But so it's only to be accounted for on one side the hosting country and on the other side the contributing country. So I hope, yeah, I hope that was the question. But feel free to further clarify. So that's the question about the interconnection timeline. So you said the interconnection timeline aims to ensure that member states account for the electricity, and it is a member state and not a project concern. What if the interconnector is a PCI PMI project? Should CB RES show that it is aligned with the article's timeline?
Doesn't matter. It's PCI.
Yeah, I don't think there's no interference. No, the PCI doesn't have an impact on the applicability or of these articles. So the PCI status follows its own path. So if the project is an interconnector part of PCI or PMI, or if it is not, in both cases, the principle of Article 11.3 follow its own logic. But we come back to this in writing
because
about.
It's from the Renewable Energy Directive.
Yeah,
PCI,
regulation. Yeah, the point is that the Article 11.3 it's the Renewable Energy Directive. The PCI has a different legal basis, it's the CINEA regulation, and so that's why they don't interfere, because they come really from different legal bases. How do you define the perimeter of the project? Can you explain details? Well, I should turn the question. How would you define? In the sense that, I mean, the perimeter of the question, the project is all the elements that you want to have it as you know that creates a unique, coherent concept of the project, and that you want to apply for CB RES status. An example: we have had projects that have submitted series one project as a CB RES that contains a series of elements, but in the description the project was saying also next to that, and eventually in the future, in the near future, we will also build, for example, storage capacity or other elements. But these are not part of the perimeter of the project. So we can have these cases. Or other cases are more straightforward, but it's really up to the applicant to define what is the scope of the project. So what do you want to have it part of the CB RES status? I hope that clarifies. So, of course, the decision on the perimeter of the project, the scope of the project, you take it based on what would be eligible in the CB RES. So the core is the project generation. There might be other components which are defined in the delegated regulation, provided that there are ancillary, they enable the integration of the renewable energy, new additional renewable energy, and so on and so forth. So if you think that those elements they are in line with the requirements, and they are functional for your project, they constitute a unique concept. In that case, normally you will include those elements in the scope or perimeter of the project. So, question about the promoter. Did it happen that CB RES projects were initiated by private actors rather than member states? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can see in the CB RES list we have private companies being the main promoter. And we have also member states. So we have both cases. We have also city level. So there's sub-regional. So yeah, there's no specific flagging of type of promoters. So apart from that, will there be or has there been an info day for CB RES funding with deadline early January?
We have already.
Yeah, you refer to the studies and works call. So, yeah, there is. We have done an info day, and it's the recording and the presentation are also available in the website, but we can also maybe include it in the communication following this session with the web link. But if you go to the CINEA web page under events and the past events, you will find it. And you will be able to find also the previous info day for the works and studies that we did it for the previous call as well. Other than the info day material, you will find in the funding and tender portal also material of the works and study call. So if you want to sort of anticipate what will happen, what type of calls you will have to answer or to apply for in case your project will be selected for CB RES status, you can also see the current call with the call templates and call document, as well as the previous calls. And if you want to have a look also of the type of project that we have approved, also in the funding and tender portal under the project section or in the CINEA website, there is a public dashboard of all the projects that are approved, so you can see the type of project, magnitude of the grants as well. So will there be a possibility after the deadline to update the submission or clarify element aspects that are not clear? No, so that's the standard rule after the deadline. So once submitted, the application will be evaluated as it was submitted. There is only one specific element. It's the letter of support and cooperation agreement in case you don't make it at that time. Let's say you have two participating countries. In case you miss one of the two, you will get a notification there. But in any case, we need the letter by the moment of for all the letters by the moment of the decision that is taken on the selection or not in the CB RES. So other than that, there might be clerical mistakes, but it's very rare. But you cannot clarify elements or complement with extra documents after the call. So there's another question on whether there's a limit to the number of questions of projects that can receive CB RES status. Not so far. There's no such a limit. I mean, the family is relatively small so far. I mean, we have 8 projects. It's growing, so but it's not an overcrowded group. So we are looking for good applications. Are there any evaluation criteria with quantifiable score besides general criteria 2 on part 4 of Annex CEF Regulation? No. So the scores, when you have the experience with the grants, that's not the case for the status call. So the status call are the evaluation criteria is really based on the criteria of the CEF regulation and on the that are further developed in the delegated regulation, the CB RES delegated regulation, and that's how the evaluation is done. So it's based on those elements, and there's no such a quantifiable score. Maybe one point we still have some time, but we will come back. In any case, we will have it in the updated FAQ. The deadline beyond which we will not answer 2 questions after that, because we need to ensure that all questions that are answered, if they are based on new elements or elements that were not sufficiently already clarified by the existing FAQ, every potential applicant can be aware of it and can access it. And as there is the Christmas break, end of the year break, so the deadline will be before that. So we will include in the FAQ document, and we can also include in the communication after this Q&A session So yeah, let's say the pledge is to really use the next few days to dig into the details and see if there are any elements that are not clear or that you would like to have it more clarified, or you couldn't find the answer in all the documents. Please get in touch with us notably via the functional mailbox, CINEA CEF Renewables, and then you can find it also in the core web page. Otherwise, the deadline of the call, you all surely know, is the 7th of January. Question whether the session will be recorded, if the recording will be available. That's normally the case. Yeah, we can. So 2 days. So in a couple of days, we can have the recording available on the website. So I suggest that all the participants or the registered participants, you receive a sort of bundled communication on all the various follow-up elements, and with that we can send the link to the recording. And then next to that, there will be the updated FAQ document, which will reflect the new question, so to say, or question that we have further developed today. One element that we have touched upon during the info day, but it's worth repeating, is that the submission platform of the CBRS works as the funding and tender portal. So it means that you can submit and reopen for as long as it is before the deadline, of course. So if you submit and reopen and you update your application, you add information or you change information, that's perfectly possible. Remember to resubmit then, because otherwise the version that you have reopened stays in draft and will not be counted. It will be counted the one that was submitted in the first place. So each time you reopen, you change anything, click on resubmit. You can do it as many times as you want. So ensure that you have a good version as early as possible, and then you are able to reopen it as many times as possible. After the call expired, then you cannot change it anymore. But before, so it works also if you submit, but then you reopen, you can also withdraw your application if that was done by mistake. Imagine you had a test and you submitted it and you want to reopen it and just erase it from the system. You can still do it, but before the deadline. After, it is not anymore possible. Okay, the question from Sylvia. The objective of our project is to develop a future CBRS generation project. Right now we need a preparatory study. In this case, what is the most indicate cooperation agreement setting up the project? Let me see if I understand. Yeah.
Think of the concept of this.
Yeah, the main point is to develop the concept of the project. So per se, the cooperation agreement. So if you want to build a new project, so a new generation project, renewable energy generation project. So it's a concrete project that will be developed for the CBRS. The cooperation agreement that you will have to set up in future is either a cooperation agreement between member states, so a joint project between member states, or between member state and third countries. Depends on of course, where it takes place and the setup. This is one of the two cooperation agreements possible. If you are in the preparatory study phase, you may not have the full cooperation agreement. So it's likely that you will have a letter of support for the project, not the full cooperation agreement. And that's also fine for the status. And later on, at the latest, will be before submitting if you are selected, before submitting a grant for works. In that case, so at the latest, we need the fully fledged cooperation agreement signed by, let's say, two member states, if it is two member states cooperating, or third countries, if it is a third country project. I hope that
Just to
clarifies.
their date on CBA, so that will be true.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, point on the fact that you are in the preparatory study phase. You have seen probably the requirements of the status quo, the CBA calculation behind that. So if you apply for status, you have to have a certain maturity level of the project, because you need to have a series of data, which if you are very, very, very early in the development of the concept, you might not have. But this is a consideration that you have to do yourself on the basis of the maturity stage of the project, whether you have the data, whether you need to wait for another year. So we have roughly one status call per year. So you can also wait another year, but that's completely up to you. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll stay another 1 or 2 minutes, so in case there are some last questions. And maybe in the meantime, I take the opportunity to clarify the process. So when you have submitted, there will be the evaluation phase, and then the Commission will take the decision on the selection and the adoption of the new list with a new project in the list, on the CBRS list. Once the decision is adopted, it will go into the scrutiny period by the co-legislators, so the Council and the Parliament. That usually takes 2 months, but the Council or the Parliament can ask for another 2 months delay in if they need so. So far, if it wasn't the case, but it can always happen. And then the way we organize the grant calls, so the CEF works and study calls, is that the new list, so in the new project and the old one, so let's say the cumulated list, is offered the opportunity to participate to the subsequent call. So when you enter in the list, the next call that will open it's done with a planning that is compatible for the participation of all projects, provided that you are mature enough, ready enough to come for an application for grant. Meaning that if you are not ready by the first window, to say, of opportunity, you can wait for for the following call. So the fact of not participating to the first call available for you doesn't prevent you to participate to the following one. What is a crucial criteria to apply for grants? It's really the maturity of your specific application. But for that, we'll see it in another presentation. Okay, doesn't seem to be other questions unanswered. Right, so we can maybe resume. And well, many thanks for your questions. For those questions where we have parked, don't worry, we'll come back to that with the FAQ updated version. Will be notified as soon as the FAQ updated version is online. Same for the recording. And any updates, stay tuned. And as I said, use the next days or to really clarify all your doubts, and then so that you are able to finalize your project. So the deadline is in January, 7th of January. I'm looking forward to see all your application. Many thanks.